Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, everybody, to episode 128 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I am Duane Steinau. Hopefully, we'll be joined here soon by Johnny Cullen, making his return to the show. We will see. Unfortunately, no hurls tonight. Thoughts go out to him and his family. He's dealing with some stuff right now. He's actually flying back to Buffalo from LA, right? Actually, I think he's in the air right now. So thoughts are out to him, and we'll hope to see him back next week. But hope and pray that him and his family won't share it on the show, but everything pulls through for them. But no fear, we have Ryan Drury from the Instigator podcast here. One of my favorite hockey people in the world, not just people, but hockey people in the world. So Ryan, thanks for hopping on, bud.
Yeah, man, it's always a pleasure to be on here. Yeah, thoughts absolutely out there with Hurls. He's a good dude, and just hoping things shake out well for him. Here's hoping.
Yeah. Ever since he's came on with the show, he's been a breath of fresh air for us, especially sometimes with Johnny's hectic schedule, always having a guy you can lean on as a co-host. When you're busy calling an OHL game during the season, and you can't bail me out. Hurls is able to be there, which is nice. So, a busy day if you're a Sabres fan. Not a lot of noteworthy stuff in the NHL, but the Sabres bring back Zemgus Girgensons and Lucas Rusek, and Lance Lyasowski from the Buffalo News here was on with the Jeff Marek and the Jeff Marek podcast. And had some tea to spill. Is that how it goes? Tea? You spill some tea?
Spill the tea. You got it right.
But is that how how do kids use? Like, I always see it as in when you're
asking the wrong guy, man.
Right, me too.
I'm not young anymore, man.
I feel like when people say they're about to spill the tea, it's more or less they have some drama or something to. They got gossip. Some big reveal. Some dramatic reveal. Yeah. Here's that tea, they say, and they see the Kermit the Frog meme or whatever it is. I guess spilled some tea today about how these Sabres aren't just in on, obviously last week we heard about Brett Pesce, but they're literally in on every single defenseman that might be available to them, including Noah Hannafin. So a lot to digest there, a lot to talk about, and a lot to speculate. But Ryan, just real quick, how have you been since the last time you were on with us? How have things been?
Been good, man. Just, this is my least busy time of the year professionally, which is nice because I need some time to recover. But yeah, I'm basically in full concert attendee mode. I've got 5 coming up over the next month, so that's basically the mode I'm in right now. Went to one last Friday, so I'm just using the summer to recharge my batteries, recharge the throat, and be ready to scream into a microphone again come September. That's basically all I've been up to.
Yeah, you and Steve been sharing some content, some music in the Two Goalies One Mic chat. I got a chance to listen to both. I enjoy them both. I'm not a heavy metalhead as you are. I do like heavy metal, but I'm not as much in the scene as I guess others are. but I enjoyed both songs. So very nice.
Yeah, it's fun. I'm definitely still a hardcore kid at heart. So, and it's a fun time to be a hardcore fan, man. Knocked Loose is like dominating the scene right now. Like the 2 singles they dropped the other day are outrageous. I just whenever somebody drops something really heavy and it's sick like that, I just kind of giggle. Like it just gets me fired up. I fell off my couch the other night. I stayed up for the midnight premiere. I saw their sing. I follow him on Twitter. I saw that he tweeted they were premiering the videos at midnight the other night. So I stayed up and watched it. Like, yeah, it's just fun to be a hardcore kid right now. It feels like the old days when I was a 15-year-old and it was like pretty popular. Warped Tour was still around, and it kind of feels like it's starting to swing back that way. So yeah, it's definitely fun. Went and saw the Canadian legends that are Alexis on Fire on Friday night at Bud Stage in Toronto, which is great. Got the flash around my Alexis on Fire tattoo to everybody, which was fun. Yeah, it's just fun to attend some concerts and not think about sports, during the summer, although there's plenty to talk about as always.
Yeah, the second the season ended and we got to see the obviously parade shenanigans, the celebration shenanigans, tarps off William Nylander, just literally
Carlson.
I'm sorry,
Bill.
Yeah, Carlson. I'm sorry.
Wild Bill, yeah.
I wrote William Nylander in the tweet. Whoops. Whoopsie daisy. Anyways, doesn't matter.
They knew who you meant.
Yeah, they knew who I meant. Yeah, I don't. When I think Willie, I think when someone says William, I like to say Willie. I think Willie Nylander. I don't think Willie Carlson, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, everybody just calls him Wild Bill, right? So
Wild Bill. Yeah.
And he was wild.
Definitely now after those shenanigans, that's for sure.
There's always one guy, eh? There's always like the one. Everybody's having a good time and partying, but any like championship team parade nowadays, there's the one guy who's like way more turned up than everybody else.
Yeah.
I like Corey Crawford had that one moment a few years back at their one cup parade. It might have been the last one, the 2015 one. He was pretty, over the top. Jonathan Quick back in the day. Ovi, need I say more? Like there's always one guy who's like a little further off the diving board than everybody else at the parade. And this year it was Wild Bill Carlson. He was ready to party.
How do you feel about? I mean, it's bound to become a T-shirt, right? We've waited 6 long years. Like if
the Vegas Golden Knights, who say what you want about their franchise, are brilliant marketers, if that is not printed on T-shirts at game 1 of the regular season next year when they lift the banner up, and those shirts better be on all the seats. We waited 6 long years. If they do not have those on T-shirts, that is a failure.
I agree. It's just for me. It's like the guy was holding the sign, and then the players kind of embraced it especially William Carlson of all of them really embraced it at the parade and the speech. I'm actually gonna pull it up right now because I have to. We have to listen to that speech. We just have to because that was good. Just so funny. Bring it up here real quick. Fuck it. I gotta see there. I need this. I hope this is the video with the air hump because the air hump was fantastic.
Made it.
Yeah, it really made it for just.
Okay, you guys can hear me. Yeah, you hear me. So, this guy, this effing guy. Yeah, I know. So, Riley. He was here day 1. Yeah. And I know you have been here day fucking 1.
Tarps off. I mean, this is fantastic.
You guys are so amazing. We played Arizona in the first game, and we beat the shit out of them. What did he say? And I had no points. No points. But that's okay. Because on year one, I was pretty fucking great.
It's so over the
You
top.
guys were greater. And we've been up and down on this journey to the cup.
They cut his mic like he's CM Punk.
Marcy, you got something to say? No. Listen to me. We've been waiting for 6 long years
She's just looking at
for
her like,
this guy to be MVP. Jonathan
Oh my God.
Marchessault.
you can't get you. I mean, that was fantastic, right? That's just
So
fantastic.
a couple things. First off, the referencing the first game and then doing the air hump after saying I was pretty effing great is one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. And probably like a little bit of a shot to some of his coaches who, you know, like he really didn't get like a good ride from Torts in Columbus and then got drafted to Vegas, obviously. And people just kind of thought, you know, decent third line player. And it turns out he's far more useful than that. But you could say that about a majority of that initial Vegas roster, right? But he is one of the original misfits and he's yucking it up. The second thing, though, that bothers me a little bit, like the girl that comes in to take the mic from him and stuff,
What's she thinking?
just
What's she thinking?
beat it. Like,
Get out of here.
first of all the towns in the world to, you know, have some language thrown around, you can go here and see far worse things in Vegas than a shirtless William Karlsson saying the F word a few times. And they just won the Stanley Cup. Like, maybe don't, you know, like
Leave it alone.
he didn't say anything like offensive or anything.
No.
You know, so
I get there might be a worry there that you might say something stupid because you're just that buckled, but like, I mean,
yeah,
I don't think so. I really don't think so. Like, I just
thought like
go.
it was a little lame. Like it was like, okay, like they're partying. Dude, the Capitals jumped in fountains. Like, just let them
Summer of
go.
Obi,
Like,
baby. Summer
yeah,
of Obi.
I'll never forget it. I'll bring it up every chance I get. Yeah, he really put a show on there, and yeah, they won the Stanley Cup, man. You just keep being you, Wild Bill. You just keep being you.
Yeah, he had a blast. That is for sure. He, I mean, as a
What do
Sabres
you
fan,
want? Like, come
Yeah,
on, man.
as a Sabres fan, it was tough to watch for the obvious reasons. But I mean, I'll never miss.
You'll have your day.
Highlights from a parade.
No, it's the coolest, man. Like, there's like a little part of you, even when a team that I don't like wins in any sport. Like I'll give you a great example. Like, I'm a big soccer fan. I'm not at all a fan of the two clubs in Manchester. Manchester City won the Champions League for the first time this year, and I was thrilled for them. Like, it looked amazing. Like, they're the little brother. You know, they always got kind of called by Manchester United fans, you know, the annoying neighbor. And now they're way more successful than United is over the last decade. Let's be clear. And they finally won the European Championship. And like, it's incredible. Like, Noel Gallagher's, freaking out and doing like it's awesome. Like I feel happy for them because I remember what it was like when Chelsea won. I'm a Chelsea fan. I remember winning the European title for Spurs. I was bawling. Like it was, dude, just it's a cool thing. It's a cool thing for a city, for a fan base. And oh yeah, they've only been around for 6 years. Well, you can't blame them for success. I hope they continue to enjoy it. It's great. And they're aggressive. Look, like Vegas, I don't want to hear any more of the complaining and the whataboutism. Like they were better than everybody else and they won on the merit of their skill and their compete level. All like now all the knuckle draggers are back going, oh, it's so unfair. They were set up for success with the expansion rules and everything. Nobody was saying that after the team got drafted. I said, I remember on my old show, I said that I would be shocked if they won 15 games the first year. I said that. You
weren't the only one, man. I mean, I would say
nobody back then was going, this is such an unfair roster they've put together day one. People thought that they would be a laughing stock.
There were a lot of players that had high expectations when they first came in the league that didn't really, pan out. The one guy that I think many were surprised to see go there was eventual Conn Smythe winner Jonathan Marchessault. I was surprised that Florida didn't protect him.
They got fleeced. They got absolutely fleeced, and so did a bunch of other teams. So I just don't want to hear it all. It was unfair and they were set up for success. No one said that, including the people tweeting it. And they were $14 million over the cap. Teams are doing it now. The NHL could have done something.
They should do something, honestly. Like
I don't care
about it.
It's legal. I don't care. I just don't care. And also they could have done something when the Tampa Bay Lightning and a couple other GMs raised the issue in 2015 when Chicago did it. They were the first ones to do this, where they stashed a bunch of money. It was actually Patrick Kane, funnily enough. And because they were able to stash Kane's cap hit on LTIR that year, they were able to trade for Anton Vermette, who played third line center for them that year and won a lot of big draws.
Fucking player for them that year too, man.
And they ended up winning the cup. And it was raised at the GM meetings that summer. And no one did anything. Everyone said, nope, this is fine.
I've seen the
I have no problem with it.
One idea thrown around, if people still want to make a stink about it, is you can be over the cap come, after that deadline. But the team you put on the ice has to be cap compliant.
Sure. Look, if you're going to tell me going forward that we make a change like that, fine.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
But that's not what the rules are now.
No.
Like, as much as everybody wants to go, oh, they were so far over the cap, it's unfair. You wouldn't be saying that if it was your team.
No, you wouldn't. And
it is fair.
You'd be putting your head down and just shuffling your shoes and you're like, yep.
It is fair. Sorry. Like, I mean, if you want to have a conversation about changing the rule, fine. But this is what the rules are. And they'd be the same for your team if they were in the same situation. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
No. I don't disagree with the sentiment at all. I just think that if they were to ever make a change to the rule, that's one way to go about it, I guess.
Sure.
If you still want to keep the rule intact, make an amendment to it and just say, hey.
Or you lose draft picks or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something. Like put it almost in a luxury tax sense where you pay money.
Depending on how much over the cap you actually are, the more extreme cap pick sacrifice you make. Like if you're $5 million over, it's like a fifth round pick.
Third round pick or something. If you're 10 million over like Vegas, it's a first rounder.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Fine. But that's not the way it is now.
I think 10 million and over would be a second. It's a first if you win the cup.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you're pitching this to me like, yeah, I have no problem with that.
We're the GMs.
I just don't want to hear.
No.
Look, in any sport, like someone wins and all the other teams lose. So I just don't like the griping of it all, like from any fan base. Just, oh, well, we would have won if this. No, you wouldn't have. You didn't win. Like that's the end of it. Come back next year.
Mm-hmm.
Not, oh, well, if we had the same circumstances, we would have won. No, you wouldn't have. Like, I just don't care to hear like the excuse making. Oh, the only reason Vegas won is because they were a well-constructed team with a very, very, very good coaching staff. And they got an incredibly hot goaltender who had to come in under ridiculous circumstances. And
he was like their
backstopped them all the way.
Right?
Yeah. What they acquire him for from San Jose last year, 2 years ago, whatever it was, like a 5th-round pick or something?
Something like that, man. It wasn't.
They caught magic in a bottle. They were a really, really good team that was really well coached that caught magic in a bottle, which is the same thing you could say about basically every single Stanley Cup winner. Sorry. It wasn't your team this year. Sorry. Like, I'm done hearing the excuses. The only reason Vegas won is because they were $14 million over the cap. Sorry.
Here's an interesting point. I think the change that would be from Greg. I think the change that would help fix the problem would be to have the players you plan. I think he corrected himself in the next one. Plan to go into the playoffs with on the roster before the playoffs. So pretty much, what is that insinuating? That you have to have at least one game played in the regular season to be eligible for playoffs?
I think he's just saying maybe before the playoffs start, you have to have everybody listed as active on your roster, which is basically what they do in baseball.
Yeah.
Baseball's got that funky rule where if a guy's injured, you can reinstate him if he's eligible to come off the IL at the end of a playoff round.
Yeah. So
maybe they could do something similar to that in the NHL, but I think that's basically what he's suggesting. Before the playoffs start, the people that play game one, you have to have them on your roster. And so maybe they could do a baseball thing where, say in Mark Stone's case, he's not listed, so he's not on the active roster right before the playoffs start, so he can't play in that first round. But at the end of the first round, the Golden Knights could reinstate him and take someone off the roster for the second round beyond. I mean, I'd be fine with that too.
Yeah.
Like baseball.
I think at some point they should make some type of like an amendment to it. Like, don't take the rule away completely, but make an amendment to it where it's not just teams taking advantage of, LTIR, and keeping guys there intentionally, the way you can see it with Mark Stone and Kucherov. Make it a situation, well, okay, if you're going to do that, well, guess what? Like, this is what you're going to have to sacrifice in order to do that. And
that's the thing, though. I don't get the appetite. I don't get the sense, rather, that the general managers who are in charge of this, I don't get the impression that they have the appetite to change this at all. Because even the teams like a Toronto or anybody that, where their fan bases would complain about something like this, they know deep down in their heart that they could run into a similar situation and do the exact same thing.
Yep.
And guess what would happen next year? Let's just paint a picture here. Next year, Toronto, Austin Matthews gets hurt in December. He blows a ligament in his foot or something and can't skate. And they put him on LTIR. Guess what all the Leaf fans or any other fan base would do if next year the rule was changed and they couldn't do that at the trade deadline? Then everybody would go, oh my God, it's so unfair the other way, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think any of the general managers have an appetite to change this rule at all, because they all know deep down, what if it was me in that situation? I'd do it too.
Yep. I agree. Like I said, I have no major issues with the rule. Again, I think at some point they're probably going to make some type of an amendment to it. Not get rid of it entirely, but we'll see. Moving on. I know it's really, really, really early, but who are your favorites already stating right now for next season? Like bold, way too early, bold prediction. Who's your favorite going into next year? Before the draft, before free agency, you look at rosters right now and obviously making common sense decisions, for certain teams, but who do you have favored most going into next year?
You know what? And it's because of not only how I feel they are now and what I've seen them do before and get close, but also what I think they're going to do in terms of some more tinkering. I really think that the Edmonton Oilers are going to be a major, major force next year. And I just think that McDavid and Draisaitl, who both were, a little nicked up, particularly Draisaitl, and still tied for the playoff leading goals, which is psychotic. I think that next year, if they can get even semi-stable goaltending, just a little bit better than what they got this year at points. Skinner was up, way down, in the middle. Jack Campbell was, if one of them can somewhat replicate what Aiden Hill just did, I still really think the Edmonton Oilers are so dangerous, and they continue to improve. And on the other side of the ledger in the East, I just talked to him. He's going to be featured on my show this week. Our buddy Johnny Lazarus. I gotta feel him, man. I like those Rangers. I know it was a disappointing year, but they've still got a very young team with an elite goaltender and good veteran leadership and a new head coach who's going to come in and really get those defensemen galloping. Laviolette plays an aggressive system. Those Rangers, man, dude, if they catch a heater and Shesterkin is just sharp, let alone how otherworldly he can be, if he's just sharp and that team catches a heater, man, are they dangerous.
Yeah, and I actually texted Lazzy yesterday after the announcement with Mike Pekka being named an assistant, which I think is a huge loss, and I think Buffalo dropped the ball there because I thought he did a phenomenal job on the staff in Rochester this year. They made a Calder Cup run. I told him, like, I'm disappointed to see him leave our organization because I thought he'd be a great fit on our bench this next year, because I think that Donnie, maybe he trusts his assistants more than maybe me. I don't understand why some of those guys like Matt Ellis are already an assistant in the NHL. Beats me. I mean, it is what it is, but I thought Mike Pekka, in terms of what he has to offer in development, especially on a young team like the Sabres, I thought that was a big loss for Buffalo, and I think maybe they don't know it yet. But I told him, I said, if you guys keep, he mentioned me, he doesn't think Goodrow's with the Rangers next season, but if a guy like Barclay Goodrow sticks around next year, the type of impact a player like Mike Pekka can have on that guy is very, very valuable. I even threw Kako in there. Kako,
I was just gonna say Kako is like, could be his pet project, honestly.
Yes, because Mike Pekka, he was never flashy. He was an aggressive centerman, a shutdown centerman. I mean, if you ever, back then, if you ever went to a game in Buffalo, back when they had the Karuba collision, it always kicked off with him crushing Alexei Yashin at center ice. He was always out there against the team's top lines to shut them down. He was a valuable player, former Selke Trophy winner. And the year they lost, I believe it was, they were a favorite to go back to the Cup, and Pekka held out for more money for the entire season. And it eventually led to, from my memory at least, it eventually led to the trade with the Islanders, which sent him to the Isles for a pick in Tim Connolly, which, in a lot of respects in terms of watching a human highlight reel of Tim Connolly here in Buffalo for a few years, it worked out. But, I mean, what he has to offer players like Goodrow and, like I said, Kako, is very, very valuable. And I think he can help improve their game and get them to the next level. And Kakko, who I understand that he hasn't really reached expectation, it was a second overall pick, right? His second.
I can't remember.
He was a top 5 for sure.
Kakko?
I want to say he was a second or a third overall pick.
Let's have a look.
He was up
here.
there.
Yeah, he was way up there. I know that he was inside the top 5. Yeah. He was second overall, in 2019. I
forget who went first that year.
Let's look. I'm trying to think. 2019. Who was first?
The one year it was Lafreniere and Byfield. 1 and 2, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Which
it was Jack Hughes.
Jack Hughes. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
My memory escaped me there. Yeah, I'm usually good for that. Yeah, Jack Hughes, pretty good player.
I think Kakko has really come around as like a guy who's developed his overall game in both ends of the ice, and having a guy like Pekka around who could really help instill with him, have a more physical. He's a big guy. And Pekka was never a big guy, but he hit like a freight train, and have a guy like that in your ear, helping further develop your overall 200-foot hockey, 200-foot game. I think that's an available thing to have behind your bench. And, I said you guys are going to be really, really happy with him in the Rangers because it's only a matter of time that he is soon to be a head coach in the league. Maybe if Laviette doesn't work out and they like Pekka that much, he could be the guy. You never know. But he will be a head coach in the NHL at some point in the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, I think he can be too, just with his experience and all of the different elements that he brought as a player will translate well as a coach. And yeah, I mean, Kakko, especially with him and even maybe a guy like Zibanejad, like can really take some of those guys' defensive games to the next level. And also, and this will be bigger for Kakko because Zibanejad's already pretty good at it.
Yeah.
But face-offs, which I know are your favorite stat.
It was quite a night last night. I won't say him by name because I like him, but we got in a little Twitter debate last night about face-offs. The exact words were face-offs don't matter, and if there's anybody that I know that knows that they do matter, it's Ryan Drury, giant Caps fan over here, who knows what where I mean, granted, it always wasn't off a face-off, but where Alexander Ovechkin's office is and how often he has scored from that spot off of a face-off after a Backstrom win or a Kuznetsov win. I mean, all I had to do was go into Twitter and search Ovechkin face-off and then click videos, and it was like 4 of the first 10 videos or whatever it was were all face-off, win goal, face-off, win goal, face-off, win goal, face-off, win goal. Like within 3 seconds of a face-off win. Like how quick that shot comes off Ovechkin's stick and it goes in the back of the net.
Yeah, I maybe agree that the importance of them can be overstated. Sure, I guess, but they're a function of the game. Like they
determine possession.
Otherwise they wouldn't do them. Like we would just go with road hockey rules and the goalie would dig the puck out of his net and then pass it out to his defenseman. That's how road hockey was. We never did. Yeah, we never did face-offs in road hockey, but they don't do that. They do face-offs and territorial face-offs in your D zone or your O zone are extremely important. And Ovi, yes, is one of the better examples of that with the amount of snipes he's had off a clean win. But you could say that about most good goal scorers. Yep. Brett Hull used to do it all the time. Mike Bossy used to do it all the time. Like I remember watching the old documentary about those Islanders teams and Bossy constantly bringing up face-offs, God rest his soul, that Brian Trottier would win on power plays and they just slide it over to Bossy in the net, 50 goals, 9 straight times. When a guy who scored 50 goals 9 straight times, which sounds psychotic to say, Mike Bossy, what a legend. Mm-hmm. When he says, boy, I scored a lot of those goals off nice face-offs, I'm like, That's kind of like saying the snap doesn't matter in football.
Yeah.
Then why do they do it?
Like it's just, to me, it's just stupid. I'm not gonna say the person who said it's stupid, but it's just.
No, it's an opinion. They have an opinion.
Analytics. They always like kick it to the analytics and just like they show the advanced stats, the face-offs, and how much they actually. I don't want to say don't matter, but like, listen, like I respect analytics. I really, really do. But I also think analytics are also for people who, and this isn't a shot at anybody. But for people who maybe never played the sport competitively or organized hockey, and it's kind of like their way of feeling like they have their place in the game to an extent. I say it to an extent. I say that with a grain of salt. But for me, I just like, how can you possibly say that? Like, I would watch guys that I played with and then I coach, kids that I coached, work for hours on how to win a faceoff or better their ability to win a faceoff. It truly is. And you ask any guy who's played at a high level who really, it's an art. Like having the timing, the patience, that
it is an
focus.
art.
It's an art. It's an art to be that good at one little thing in the game of hockey. It truly is. It's an art. And to use one example, I use one example of how when Buffalo scored, Chris Drury, cousin Chris, scored against the Rangers, it was off a face-off.
Oh, the overtime goal, yeah.
Yeah, but you want to know what? You can't just take one example like that and use to justify your point. Like for every one time, I can find 10 examples just with Alexander Ovechkin where it did matter. Regardless if face-off statistics don't correlate directly to winning, goals do. And when goals come off a face-off, those goals correlate to winning. So
I guess I would put it like this. Like you can absolutely win a hockey game and lose the face-off battle. Happens quite often. You can absolutely win a game and get possession back quickly with a good forecheck or off of a turnover, having a good stick, all those things. You can win a game often and not win the face-off battle, even lose it by 10 or more. You can absolutely do that. Yeah. But I would put it to you like this. If you and I were to race right now and I stumble out of the blocks and you get a good start, it doesn't necessarily mean that I'll lose the race. Maybe I'm a really fast guy and I can make up the ground quickly, but it's more likely you're going to win the race and you got off to a way better start. It's going to make it easier for you to beat me if I stumble out of the blocks and you don't. I guess that's how I would put it. Like, no, they're not the be all end all, but to insinuate that they aren't that important, then I don't really know what that, I don't know. It's like saying don't put on your seatbelt. It's like, well, actually, yeah, do it. Like, they are important. And if you win enough of them in critical situations, power plays, late in a game, net empty, goalie pulled, you need a goal to tie it. Like, those are very big face-offs and very big moments in games.
Very much so. We kind of went off the rails there for a second, but my bold prediction for next season, I'm actually right in line with you. I think, I think Edmonton they still have some cap space to work with. I mean, do they find a way out of the Jack Gamble contract right now? I mean, I know they're paying him like roughly like $5 million a year.
Yeah.
Whether they trade that contract away. I think they have some great depth down the middle. I mean, and on top of that, you have a guy like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, a 100-point player last season, and he's playing on you know what I mean? Like, you're paying that guy $6.25 million for 100 points last season, and he's always been
a good player.
He is a good player. He's a solid, consistent, reliable player. I think they do make another addition. I think Ekholm, I want to say I don't know. I don't think he was supposed to be a free agent. I think they might have him for another year. Which
I believe
think,
they have him for one more year.
Yeah, which for me that's huge because that's a guy they definitely needed. Regardless of what happened in the playoffs, that's a guy.
He changed their blue line. He really did. He made a huge impact, particularly on that Bouchard kid.
Yes, and I don't know if Skinner's the guy in net. I really, really don't know. I know he had an all-star appearance this year. Again,
maybe he is,
Aiden
though.
Hill. Aiden Hill won a Stanley Cup this year. Went on a run, and that's all you really need from your goaltender. I don't think it was Skinner's fault that they lost in the playoffs at all. Who did they end up losing to?
Edmonton, they lost to Vegas.
They had to lose to Vegas. Yep.
In 7 games.
Yep. I don't put that on Skinner. I mean, they lost to the eventual Stanley Cup champions. Connor McDavid was a 1.5 per game player in the playoffs. I mean, what more could you ask from him? Was he supposed to see a 2.5 point game per player? Is that what you need from him? Like, then what was that same with the rest of your team? I think they do need to make one more addition, but I agree. I think there's a fire that's going to happen there in terms of, inspiration, motivation. I mean, I know I don't know if Connor McDavid is that type of player. I would assume that Jack might have been a little bit, especially because obviously always being compared to McDavid. I bet you in the back of his head, it's like, fuck that. Not fuck Connor McDavid, because I'm sure they're pals. It's, they see.
Yeah, there's certainly a respect there.
Yeah, there's respect there. But in the back of his head, like, fuck those people who like put him so far above me. Who got a cup first? Granted, a lot of other players were able to carry the weight when Jack couldn't on that Vegas team. Whereas if you take Connor McDavid off that Vegas team, even though they have Leon Draisaitl, I don't think they're nearly as good of a hockey team without Connor McDavid. I think, that's obvious.
Yeah, you could say that if he was.
It's like taking Ovi away from the Cat. It's like taking Ovi away from Washington.
Sid from the Penguins. Yeah, like he's an otherworldly player who is by far the most talented hockey player I've ever seen in my life. I marvel at his skill level at speed. He is he's certainly by any measure, because look, it's hard to argue eras, but there have been a lot of good hockey players, man. But like, I can certainly say without a doubt that he is the most skilled player at speed that has ever played in the NHL. And hey, there's been lots of those guys too. Like Pavel Bure was an unbelievable player.
Bure is so fun.
McDavid is that times 50. He's so outrageously skilled at just making you look dumb going 100 miles an hour. It's outrageous.
Watching Pavel Bure growing up, like the things he would do in a game at full speed, like there are guys in today's NHL that couldn't do that at half speed in practice.
No way.
It was just nuts. It was nuts. The tap off the skate back to the stick.
He invented dekes.
Huh?
Like he invented dekes.
Yeah, and
that like people had never seen before. He was outrageous.
Like that
and
era
McDavid's
of hockey too. As I don't want to say the goaltending was bad, because it wasn't bad. It was just wasn't as advanced as it is now, especially with the equipment and the training. But like, watching that era, you're the Russian era. The true Russian, when they broke into the league. Your Bure, your Mogilny, your Fedorov, the Russian. I've like just all of those guys that came in with so much fucking speed, and just watching them play, like Jesus Christ, man, like I would love. I'm not saying that Wayne wouldn't have scored as many goals or scored as many points, but especially with the goal. I mean, he never scored a goal against arguably the greatest Russian goalie that ever lived in Tretiak, because a lot of those guys couldn't come over early on in his career. I would love to see would he have been able to dominate as much as he did had the other half of the world been able to come here and play that early in his career. Do you think he would have dominated as much?
it's one of those great what if questions that like is fun to think about. Probably like, I don't know. It's just so hard to say because on one hand, you could say he was outrageously acrobatic. Like there are clips you can look up of Tretiak, like in the gym,
dude.
like stretch, like the guy could have like
Doing
auditioned for the
medicine
Bolshoi
balls and
ballerina.
stuff like that, like it's nuts.
It was psychotic. The stuff that they were not only doing of their own free will, but that the coaches were making the players do, and he was still so outrageous.
It was a true job there, whereas not saying it wasn't here. It was their job. Means if you fucked up at your job, there were consequences.
Yeah,
whereas the only consequences here in North America was, maybe 5 minutes with the media. Over there were true consequences.
Yeah, not good stuff. But yeah, I think that Tretiak probably would have been a very success because he was playing the same style that basically all the NHL goalies were playing back then in the late 70s and early 80s until Patrick Waugh came along. So I have no reason to believe that a guy that was that talented and that intimidating on the ice, I have no reason to believe that he wouldn't have at least had moderate success in the NHL. But who knows? Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, again, like you said, one of the world's greatest what ifs. I would say I'll have a dark horse too. And this isn't me being biased, but I really do believe the Buffalo Sabres really make some waves next year. Like, I'm not saying they're just going to make a first-round appearance. I think they make a playoff run. Especially, it's also contingent on if the goaltending problem is truly fixed, which I think it is. And which we'll use this to transition to our next point, the blue line. They find their true Owen Power partner, and they create real depth on their blue line, whereas they're not constantly switching a guy out in that second pairing to play with Owen Power, because I think that guy is really he's waiting to be let off a leash almost. Not saying that he wasn't this year, but I really don't think you really got to see everything that Owen Power is truly capable of. Because he had to, he wasn't able to really play the same type of game that Dahlin plays because he never had his version of Samuelsson. There was always an inconsistency there. He always had to cover up for mistakes, whether it was with Jacob Bryson or Yoki Haru or Cale Clay or whoever it was playing on the side of him that particular night. He couldn't truly let himself off his own leash and go be the guy that was drafted first overall. I think if you find that guy, whether it's via trade or free agency, look out, because you are going to have an insane two-headed monster on Buffalo's blue line next year. And if you couple that with true NHL level goaltending or above average NHL goaltending, I think that team can make a run.
I agree. I mean, I think that in the bare minimum, it's playoffs or bust. They are talented enough. They are good enough to be a playoff team.
Correct.
I wholeheartedly believe that. And we've seen teams that are, similar in current makeup win a round, potentially even more. Like, I think that they're almost, and look, I'm not saying that they're going to do what this team went and did, but they are in kind of that similar position of those early young Penguins teams. Young goalie, young studs down the middle in Cousins and Tage Thompson. I'm not saying they're Crosby and Malkin. I'm just saying, like, look at the kind of similar scenario here. Really, really talented offensive rushing blue liner. Your Letang, your Dahlin. I think that they're in that similar type of window where they're just starting to open the window. And the window should be open with this team, with this amount of talent, and the young guys that are the catalysts of it locked up for a long time on good contracts. That window should be forcibly held open for at least 7 to 8 years. Like, they have a really, really nice structure built there in Buffalo. I would consider it a real disappointment if they miss the playoffs. And if they get in and have a really good season, why couldn't they make some noise? Tage Thompson running people over and dangling through people like a big horse, with the Mario Lemieux wingspan, and Dylan Cousins, the workhorse from Whitehorse, running people over and winning big face-offs. And Dahlin clapping it from the point and railroading people because he's a freak athlete and can just hip check people like Rob Blake and rush the puck like Niedermeyer. He's a freak. He was the number 1 overall pick for a reason. Everybody saw it last year.
Mm-hmm.
Why not? Why not? They're going to be so much fun to watch. Yeah, they're going to be fun to watch. I almost am bummed that RJ is done broadcasting because he would have a whale of a time calling goals for this team next year. They are going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. And we'll transition that into the report made earlier when Lance Lyasowski from the Buffaloes joined Jeff Marek on his podcast, which you can find pretty much everywhere you can find a podcast. And the topic of defensemen was a major sticking point. And Jeff Marek essentially said that Kevin Adams is in on any and all defensemen, either available free agency or via trade. Noah Hannafin's name was thrown around, which, yes, please. I've always been big on Racco Gudas because, he's just a bear. He looks like a bear. He's a scary human being. They named Matt Dumba, obviously Brett Pesce, another guy who was previously reported that Kevin Adams was checking in on with Carolina as early as last week. So there's a lot of names being thrown around. There's a lot of options. Dmitry Orlov, one of your boys. I personally think Orlov is going back to the Capitals. That's just my opinion. I think just like Tom Wilson, they both want to be there when Ovechkin breaks the record. Like that. And for me, I think that, they have their cup. Not that they still don't want to win a cup, but I think that means a lot to guys like that who've been around for a minute in Washington, being there when Ovi breaks that record.
Yeah, I guess I'd be okay with it if he came back. I mean, he's 31 now. He made $5.1 million last year. I don't know if I'd want to give him a ton over 6. Look, I like Orly, but he would drive me crazy at points. And, when the Caps won, Matt Niskanen and Lane Lambert kind of became the Orlov whisperers, where they reined him into a place where it was we love the aggressiveness and the big hip checks and the puck rushes and all. He's a very skilled player. He really, really is. Good skater, big kid. Not a kid anymore, but he can be accused, I guess, of being a little over aggressive at times. A bad pinch here, leading to a breakaway or a 2-on-1, a mistimed hit. I like him, I guess I would welcome him back. It's just that with Washington, and I get it, him and Ovi are buds. It's just that if Washington brings him back, it would kind of fly in the face of what they said they want to do, which is get younger and faster and implement this new system under Spencer Carberry, who's a new young voice in terms of a head coach that I'm excited to have. So I don't know, I'd be torn on it, right? Cause it's yeah, he helped us win a cup and he was a big part of it. I love Orly. He should never pay for a drink in DC for the rest of his life, but I just don't know that re-signing him would, not that it'd be a bad idea. I just don't know that it would fit with the narrative of trying to get younger and bring guys like Fairvari more into the fold and give him more responsibility. And Alexiev, God willing, he can stay healthy, the poor kid. I don't know, but Orlov would be a guy that could, look what he did in Boston. I know they lost in the first round. It wasn't his fault.
Mm-hmm.
He would be an asset to any team, like any team, even if it's the Caps again. Like, he's a very, very good. He's not elite, but he's just a very good defenseman with a big shot that can make things happen out there. Like, he can help your power play. He can help your penalty kill. He'll run people over. He's a gamer. Like, as much as he makes mistakes out there sometimes, you cannot question his compete level. He comes to play.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always loved that about him.
Correct. Yeah. And if I had my pick personally, I mean, I love Dmitry Orlov, but is Noah Hanifin the guy? I mean, he's a left-handed shot, isn't he? He's not a right.
Yeah, Hanifin's a lefty, if memory serves. And that's the thing. Like, Hanifin is a little bit more of that classic two-way guy, a puck mover who likes to get the puck off his stick quickly, makes a good first pass, isn't necessarily a facilitator of offense. He's more of a guy that will join in after, staple up at the point, and cycle the puck around, and can really dish the puck. Not a particularly giant shot. He doesn't score a ton of goals, but he's just a solid guy who skates really well too. Good edges. He's a guy that, like, is just going to give you solid minutes. And that's why, like, if we're talking Buffalo here, I don't know necessarily that Orlov is a good option for you either. Yes, talented, very good defenseman, but he is a puck rusher. He's a guy that likes to have the puck on his stick. Buffalo's already got those guys. You've got Dahlin, you've got Owen Power. Why do you need another wild horse out there running around with no saddle on? You need some guys that are going to help settle Power, particularly because Samuelsson Dahlin's pretty locked in. That they seem to really like each other, and that's a pair. Power needs that guy. And Power's the guy that wants the puck on his stick. He looks like a fourth forward sometimes. He's just an extremely exciting offensive defenseman. So I don't know that Orlov's a guy that we necessarily need to look at if you're the Buffalo Sabres. Yes, very talented player, but is he the player you need? I don't really think so. Hanifin would be more along that line because he's just a little bit more quiet. And by that, I mean, he's not the guy, you know, doing end-to-end rushes and starting an offensive rush from the back end. He's moving the puck quickly up to the forwards and sneaking in there and doing damage and giving you good penalty killing minutes. I think he would fit the mold of what Buffalo would want more than a guy like Orlov.
Agreed. Yeah. I'm looking. I know Dahlin's a left-handed shot. Samuelsson, for some reason, I think he might be a left-handed shot too, but I think he just plays the opposite. Yeah, he is. They both. One of them just can play both sides, and that's why I want to say it's Samuelsson, the one that plays the offside, and it works well. It has worked well for them. Maybe this is a situation where they believe Hanifin can be the same type of guy, or maybe they have that type of belief in Power, and that's why his name's being thrown. Because you don't sign a guy like Noah Hanifin and make him a third pairing guy. You just don't. No,
he's a top four
offensive juggernaut type player. Like he's been consistently in the 30, 40 point range, somewhere between 35 and 45 points throughout his career, which is great for a defenseman. But he's not an offensive juggernaut. He takes care of business in his own end and is reliable between his time in both Carolina and Calgary. But, I mean, if I had my first choice, I mean, Matt Dumba's name has never really been out there for me, at least on my radar. I wouldn't mind it. I think he struggled a little bit in Minnesota, but, I mean, maybe I'm just listening to Minnesota talking heads too much. But, you know, you talked about it before the show about Matt Dumba, and you said, you think, maybe I agree, you know, in a second pairing role, he would thrive being paired with an Owen Power.
Yeah, like Dumba, that's the thing with him. Like he is similar to Orlov in the sense of he's a bit of a boom or bust player. Like he either is going to make something really exciting happen when he rushes the puck, or he's going to turn it over and, you know, make a mistake. Now, again, similar to Orlov as well, the guy's a gamer. Like, he wants to go out there and make an impact.
Yep.
He loves the big hit. Everybody saw, what happened in the playoffs again, like getting himself into, a little bit of controversy with a high hit there on Joey P. But yeah, like he likes to go out there and throw his body around, and it's not a big body, but he makes it bigger than it looks on the stat sheet. And he's got a big shot. He's got a lethal shot, a big, hard, heavy shot. I'm surprised he doesn't score more often. Yeah, I don't know. He's an interesting player that I think has definitely, I think underachieved is maybe fair, just in terms of, I think people, when they first saw him when he came into the league and saw like all this offensive upside, they thought that he was going to be like a consistent 60, 70 point guy. And that's just not, what he is. But there's certainly plenty of talent there. He's a good skater. He's small. He gets around the ice quickly and loves to lay the body. I just wonder, though, if his game is a little too explosive, similar to Orlov, where it's either explosive in a really good way or it can be explosive in a bad way with a mistimed hit, a bad pinch, a bad penalty. He's got a penchant for, losing his temper a little bit out there. I don't necessarily know that he'd be the guy for Buffalo, but if they signed him, like, you're certainly getting a guy that can help you win games. Like, I certainly think in summation, Dumba does more good than bad on the ice. Maybe some Minnesota fans would disagree with me, but I think he's a good player. Like, and you certainly, again, can't question his effort level. Like, he goes out there and he plays the game and tries to take people's heads off, and I respect it.
No, I do too. We need that guy on our blue line. Samuelson can do it from time, but again, he's a first pairing guy. I mean, I don't know if I want him always out there being that guy. I think Dahlin plays enough snarl right now where you kind of like level that out between the two of them. Dahlin's got some nastiness to him. We've seen it a lot this past season. He gets involved in a lot of scrums. He's not afraid to be engaged with the physical side of the game. Matt Dumba, I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't hate it. It's not my first choice, but I wouldn't hate it. He's not an offensive juggernaut type player like we just spoke about Hanifin. He's even kind of like in terms of point production, he's further below Hanifin and what he's been throughout his career. Both guys have been roughly in the league almost the same amount of time. I think Hanifin maybe a little bit longer than Dumba. I know Dumba's been around for 10 seasons now. I'm not sure if Hanifin's been around the same amount of time or maybe a little bit longer. But if I had my choice, I'm all over it. I would like Radko Gudas. I'd like that honestly the list starts with Gudas. That's my guy. Brett Pesce. There was some talk on that podcast about what it would take to get him. Someone threw 2 first-round picks. I'm like, you out of your mind? 2 first-round picks for Brett Pesce? No, I'm not trading that for Brett Pesce. That's insanity.
Yeah, I don't know where. Yeah, I can't imagine parting with 1 first-round pick. And I know he's a good player. He's a good player. He's a good player. Like, and he's not on a monster contract or anything like that. It's just that first-round picks are so precious now, man. You got to hit on those. Like, I don't know if he's the type of player that I'd feel comfortable parting with a first-rounder over. Like, if you were like a team that felt like you were really close and that you were confident you were going to have like a very low first-round pick, and it was the trade deadline where prices can get inflated because people are going, I'm making a run or I'm selling, and it's like very definitive by the trade deadline, we're in it or we're not, then maybe you could see that. But in the off season where, you look at his body of work, I don't see, how you just get a feeling like you look at a player and go, it's like the Hall of Fame debate. Is this guy a Hall of Famer? You just get a gut feeling and you go,
Yeah.
no, or yeah. That's how I
Wait.
feel about Brett Pesce and first rounders. I'm just kind of like, I don't know about
They
that.
were using the Orlov return at the deadline as like a comparison of what
Orlov's a way better player than Brett
Yes,
Pesce.
I agree. Like
I don't, and
as
I'm
a
not saying
comparison.
I'm not saying it's like a vast valley, but just Orlov in the scope of a hockey game brings a lot more to the table, in my opinion, than Brett Pesce.
I agree. Both
That's
are big
just my
guys.
opinion.
I mean, both are big guys. I think Orlov's a little bit on the heftier side. Pesce comes in at 6'3", 206. But I think Orlov is more physical. I think he has more to offer offensively, and you just can't teach experience. He's won a cup.
Well, that's what separates him from
Yeah.
Pesce. I'll listen to an argument about the two of them and their defensive merits, but Pesce cannot bring offensively what Orlov can, and that's where the gulf is. Orlov is I'd borderline say he's underrated. I don't know that a lot of people realize how actually good he is offensively.
I mean, 8 seasons, his highest career total in terms of points has been 30. Again, not known for his offensive ability. A guy who I think is more valued as a defensive defenseman. We'll bring up Orlov here real quick too. Let's see, Dmitry Orlov. No, I don't know what's going on right now. Okay. Yeah, right, there we go. I mean, again, 36 points this past season. You look at his point totals over the course of his career. He usually, split between Washington and Boston this past year. Again, 35 or more points over the last 5 or 6, 6 seasons. A guy who's consistently he's dependent on for the power play. Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't think that Pesce offers what Orlov can, offensively. And like I said, while he is shorter than Brett Pesce, 214 pounds, the guy is stocky, not stocky, but he's a bear. He's all muscle. So
watch some of his hit compilations.
Yeah.
Particularly the Matt Duchene one where he flipped Matt Duchene over like a cheap flapjack. Like Matt Duchene did 2 somersaults in the air. Like it's one of the best hip checks I've ever seen. He got all of Matt Duchene and more. Yeah, he's a snarly little dude. And yeah, like he's not like a 65-point defenseman, but keep in mind too, like he was always on the second power play. Like it was Mike Green and John Carlson that were up there feeding Ovechkin. Orlov would jump over the boards with 30 seconds left in the power play, right?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't get a lot of opportunities to be like a mainstay on the power play. But look what happened when he went to Boston. They were calling him Bobby Orlov because he just like got off to a heater. And he have like 8 points in his first 4 games or something. Like the dude can play.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a really good player, but I don't know. I just don't know that he's necessarily a fit in Buffalo. But again, with him or Dumba, like would I, if I was a Sabres fan, be lamenting the signing of either of them? No, because you just signed a good hockey player. Let's see how it works out.
Yeah, with Orlov, you bring a ring into the room, which I don't think they have right now. I think of that roster. I don't think there's a single Stanley Cup ring in there. Actually, I'm fairly positive there is not a Stanley Cup ring in there. No, there isn't. So to bring a ring into the room, I think it has value. Again,
it does something
with an Orlov signing. But again, I love the idea of Radko Gudas, man. I mean, I don't know if I think he probably chooses to stay in Florida. I know he's a UFA. Actually, I'll bring that up real quick since we're talking about, defensemen and, what is out there. I'll bring that up real quick. And we can just see kind of, what in terms of free agency, what Kevin Adams or any team, even your Washington Capitals has to pick from. come the summer. Well, we're in the middle of summer, but come free agency, and that starts fairly soon, I think, isn't it? It's in July.
July 1st.
Jeez, man. Where is this year gone? Jesus, dude. It's like a week away. That snuck
We're
up.
getting there, dude.
That's snuck up on us, bud.
He is a UFA.
Yeah, he's a UFA. I'm just looking. NHL.com, top NHL free agents. I'll share screen right now. I think this year in particular too, there's a lot to choose from in terms of offensively, defensively. Even the goalie market has been a little bit more plentiful than you've seen in years past. UFAs, top of the NHL free agent forwards. O'Reilly, Tarasenko likely available. Ivan Barbashev, a kid who really made a name for himself this past season with the Golden Knights. He's kind of shot to the top of most lists. And I don't disagree with him at all being at the top of anybody's lists. Because that kid, I don't think he's a Vegas Golden Knight next year. They can't afford him, but absolutely a kid that I think would fit very well into Buffalo. But I don't think that's the direction Kevin Adams is going. Obviously, defense first. But you see Patrice Bergeron, I think he retires. Tyler Bertuzzi, I would love me some Tyler Bertuzzi. Michael Bunting, I've had that conversation before. The idea of him on a line with like a kid like Dylan Cousins, like just the amount of meat on that line and just aggressive skill. Patty Kane, I mean, he's loved here in Buffalo. Personally, I'll take a pass. I don't need Patrick Kane on my hockey team. Not that I would be disappointed, but I just don't need it. Phil Kessel, I would love it just because he would not shy away from throwing shade at the Maple Leafs any chance he got. Alex Killorn, a guy that I've really, really been high on, in the past, with him approaching free agency this offseason. I'm a big Alex Killorn guy. David Krejci, I don't think he ever leaves Boston if he doesn't retire. Ryan O'Reilly, I'm completely on board with him, bringing him back to Buffalo if he chooses to. Max Pacioretty, Zach Parise, Corey Perry, Jordan Stahl, Vladimir Tarasenko, Johnny Teus. I mean, are these all forwards that I'm looking at here? Are we not getting any defensemen?
It looks like it's all forwards, yeah.
Oh.
But I mean, some of those guys are going to land in interesting spots. Like O'Reilly is an interesting one to me, and obviously he's a local guy up here. His hometown is about half hour from me.
Yep.
And he's, a well-liked dude up here.
Big Tim Hortons guy.
Yeah. Yeah. So no comment. I have no comment on that. His dad is a really cool guy too. Really interesting guy.
You're not the first person I've heard that from.
He's a super interesting guy. He's a sports psychologist. And he trains Ryan and Cal in the offseason, makes them do like very interesting stuff, for their hand-eye and stuff. He's a super fascinating guy to talk to. I've interviewed him twice. He's a very, very smart dude.
So I've actually heard one of these stories is he'll have him do calisthenics while doing like calculus and math problems.
It's wild.
On your feet.
There's videos you can look up. Like Sportsnet did a feature on him when he got traded to Toronto, obviously, right? But like there's like videos you can see of him like balancing on the half ball, and like his dad is like throwing him different colored sticks, and you can only grab a certain color. It's wild stuff that like you would just never think of. It's very unorthodox like workout routines. He had like I saw one that he was doing where he had him on like a gymnast balance beam, and he was stick handling over top of the beam on both sides through obstacles while walking the beam. It's just like wild stuff. He's a super interesting guy. Yeah.
We look at this list, obviously the news from this week, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, OEL. bought out by the Vancouver Canucks. He's available. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to be knocking down his door. He's only 30. He'll be 32 almost 32 years old. It's not like he can't play anymore, but in terms of the money,
if someone gave him, if he took like $2 million from somebody, you'd go like, yeah, that's not a bad third pairing guy that can move the puck around still. Like he's just gotten to a point in his career where he just like is not worth, $7+ million. And man, the Canucks, God, are they ever a mess like in the front office? Like, I don't know what they're doing out there, dude.
And they have great pieces like on that team already, in Hughes, and
they got really good players.
Yeah, they do. And just I still think Thatcher Demko is a great goalie. Just need to build in front of him.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade him. I know people are like, oh, they should trade Demko. I'm like,
no, I don't think so at all.
What for? Like,
yeah, why? At least get a team in front of them before you make that decision. But in terms of right-handed defensemen, you see Matt Dumba, Eric Johnson, Kevin Shattenkirk, there's a name, Travis Hamonic. I was used to be pretty big on him before he went to back. He signed with Calgary, right? Yeah, I think Hamonic.
Yeah, like he went back home to Alberta, and I actually think he's from Manitoba. But yeah, he wanted to come back to Canada. There's a whole thing with his dad.
There was a thing where his dad, but he also just didn't want to play in America. He wanted to be, he said, close to family. Radko Gudas, again, at the top of my list. You have Justin Hall with Toronto, and then you get into Scott Mayfield, who a friend of mine, and actually in our group chat, he mentioned earlier, Scott Mayfield probably isn't going to be back with the Islanders. 30 years old. I don't know what type of a pay raise a kid like him would demand, but at 6'5" at the right price, do you pair? What's your feelings on him?
He's a big, mean son of a bitch. Like he'd rough some people up for you. Yeah, like that's more the type of guy you're probably after. Like Kevin Adams is going to want, like, it's always great when you can have a defenseman that can do a bit of everything, but like when you have guys on your team that already are able to carry the mail in terms of Dahlin and power offensively back there, just give them that old school guy. It's just such a tried and true method throughout NHL history. The puck rushing offensive defenseman paired up with kind of the stingy stay at home, cross check you in the head to get you out of the crease type of guy. And Mayfield would certainly do that, right? It's the Mark Method, Erik Karlsson thing. Like it works. Teams keep doing it. Like there's something to be said for pairing up defensemen that are in those type of molds. So I think I think he's just a big dude that can definitely clear the crease.
Personally.
Hey man, he's got size and he uses it. There are a lot of guys in the league that are big that
just can't teach size.
Don't really hit people. And it's frustrating, but he's certainly not one of those.
But again, in terms of it's always right-handed shot defensemen. They're so valued around the league. And then after that, you see Troy Stetcher, Connor Clifton, and then the list doesn't get much better after that. But I don't know about left-handed defensemen that can play both sides. If that's, again, I know we talked about Noah Hannafin earlier. Maybe one of the two, either or Power or Hannafin, can play both sides. Again, I don't know what Kevin Adams' thinking is. But in terms of right-handed defensemen, in terms of free agency, this is what you have to work with, essentially, is Jonathan Klingberg. Not sure if I'm interested. Matt Dumba, Eric Johnson, and then you don't get another. And this is all broken down. It's not by ranking, their own ranking, but by their cap hit from this past season. Largest to smallest. You get into, again, your Kevin Shattenkirks, your Travis Hamonics, and then Radko Gudas, who I think gets a big pay raise this offseason from 2.5, and I think he's earned it. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what Kevin Adams will have planned to fill that hole that's been there now for 2 seasons. in that second pairing slot right next to Owen Power. Well, one full season at least. But also some news today for the Sabres. They bring back Zemgus Girgensons and prospect Lucas Rusek, who made his NHL debut this past season, scored a nice goal in his debut. And I don't know how much you know about Zemgus Girgensons, but your thoughts on that? I'm okay with it. I'm personally okay with it.
Yeah, it's fine. And the cap hit's not brutal. Like, he's just a good meat and potatoes guy. He shows up, he works hard, wins some faceoffs. And,
right.
He wins some faceoffs.
Right.
He's just like, I don't know, like, he's been there a long time. Like, he's a good little foot soldier. He tries hard. There's nothing spectacular about his game, but he goes out there and competes. Yeah, like in the, 9 to 12 minutes that he'll get on a nightly basis, depending on how many penalties Buffalo takes. Like, he goes out there and wins his draws, kills penalties, throws his weight around, and, he brings his lunch pail every night. Like, there's nothing flashy about him, but he works hard out there for the Sabres fans, and I don't really see a big issue with him coming back either.
No, I want to bring it up here real quick. Someone posted it earlier. His Jay Fresh card is actually like insane in terms of defensive ability. Where was it?
Here, like his even strength defense.
Yeah, even straight defense. Right here it says it was a 90%, but the one I saw earlier today, it was a 98%, which is nutty. If you ask me, like that's nuts.
It essentially means that when he's on the ice, there are not a lot of high danger chances that are coming toward the Buffalo net. And like for a guy who's like a fourth liner, that's like exactly what you want. A guy who goes out there, gets the puck out of the zone, wins a draw, kills a penalty, block a shot, and keep it in the other end of the ice, dump it, and get off so that Tage Thompson can come out and chase that puck into the corner. That makes perfect sense to me. Like nothing flashy. He just does his job and he does it well.
I'm just trying to find the most updated Jay Fresh card that I saw earlier. I can't bring up my text messages on my MacBook, unfortunately, but it was sent in a actually I'll just bring it up. See, I'm assuming he posted it earlier.
You can't bring your text message. We got to call Tim Cook. This is an emergency.
I know.
Come on, Apple. Uncle Tim, fix this.
Well, I disconnected it, man, because I had so much going on different, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need to be getting messages on this.
Yeah,
device,
your screen starts lighting up. It's
just
a disaster.
Too much. Here it is, Jay Fresh Hockey. He probably posted it earlier today after the signing was announced. Usually does. There it is. So I'll share this. I'll share my screen here. Again, it's an insane look into the value of a player like him. And the reality of it is, and there are a couple comments in the peanut gallery that I'll bring up here too, about, looks like it kicked me out there. There was some.
I was going to say, do I have to host this show by myself now?
No. I mean, you do a better job than me anyway. But there was some. Well, whose spot is Girgensons taking, especially after they brought back Okposo? Like, I mean, I don't know if Okposo is going to be a full-time player next year. He's up there in age. He's always a step or two behind. I think he's a guy that will be in and out of your lineup as needed. But as you can see
here, at that.
Its projected wins against replacement is a 60%. But look at that, 98% even strength defense. Again, going back to what you say, there aren't a lot of high danger chances when Zemgus Girgensons is on the ice. And there is such a need for that. Even strength offense, it's a 36%. Not great. Definitely not great. He's a fourth liner, and he's only making $2.5 million, and he brings stability to your penalty kill. And I mean, he's a guy that you can throw out there in a situation where you're trying to protect a lead, and he's going to limit the opponent's chances. And you need guys like that. You just do. Whether you like it or not, maybe Yuri Kulik does start the year in Rochester. Maybe he does block him from coming in. And honestly, like, is it really such a terrible, terrible thing if Yuri Kulik starts in Rochester? No, it's not. Is it really a terrible thing if Matthew Savoie starts in Rochester? No, it's not a terrible thing. I mean, it's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with not rushing a guy to the NHL, especially at 19 years old. We don't need to do that.
I think, like, Zemgus has been around for a while. He knows what his lot in life is. He knows who he is. I'm willing to bet he probably signed this deal with the understanding, like, he's not dumb. He sees the pipeline. He sees the kids that have been called up throughout the season. I don't think that he's sitting there blind to the possibility that I'm probably not going to play every game.
Yeah.
That's the situation he's in. He's a wily veteran who, again, does his job well. It's a quiet job. It's not a flashy job. There's nothing wrong with having some depth, particularly depth in the form of a veteran who clearly likes the franchise and works hard out there. Like, there's, on the other side of the coin, like, maybe Kulik and those guys push him out of the lineup. And there he is. If someone gets hurt or they want to shake things up after a bad loss or something, like, you throw him back in there and you get the benefit of knowing exactly what you're going to get when you toss Girgensons back in the lineup, let's say. Like, I don't think that it's a preventative thing in any measure. He'll play when they need him, and when he's in the lineup, he'll give you 98% even strength defense, shut guys down, and then quietly skate back to the bench and cash his check. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, and I said it. I'm pretty sure I said it earlier. I don't know if Kyle Okposo is going to be a full-time guy in this lineup. So maybe your 10th forward. Sorry, your 13th forward. 3 times 4 is 12. Yep, I'm an idiot. Sorry. Your 13th forward. Maybe it's a rotation between Okposo and fill in the blank, whether it's Rusek, who many seem to think is more NHL ready than the rest of the prospects, which is who they signed today to a 2-year deal. Is it Kulik? Does he impress in training camp, as Captain Ahab here brings up? Doesn't signing Girgensons block Kulik or Savoie? If Olsen gets traded, which he most likely will be, it opens one slot. If Kulik comes out of camp strong, how do you send him to Rochester? And Savoie already mastered the WHL. Listen, I think I don't know. It's and that's the weird thing with juniors. I mean, you know that too. It's like, you can't send these guys to Rochester, unfortunately. In a special circumstance at the end of the season where they had Savoie show up to Rochester for their cup run after his season was over, obviously with juniors and everything. So I mean, would it be necessarily a bad thing for Matthew Savoie to play another year of junior?
No,
I don't think so.
No, and he'd get to go to the World Juniors and dominate. It's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, he's a really good player, but he could come back and be dominant again, probably get traded potentially to a big contender out there. Like, if he goes back to the CHL this year, it's not going to be, some sort of Greek tragedy or something. And Kulik, yeah, if he impresses in camp and earns a spot, out of camp, great. Maybe Girgensons sits then and Kulik gets some playing time. And if he gets sent back down, he gets sent back down. Here's the thing, right? We're talking about this like it's a problem. These are great problems to have. The worst thing is going, who the hell's going to play in our bottom 6? Who's our third defenseman? Like, Buffalo does not have those problems right now. No, you're in a position now for the first time in ages where you're going, geez, are we going to have enough room for that kid Kulik? Like, really good kid. Is Savoie ready to come up?
Kulik. We're begging for Kulik.
you're like, get this kid in the lineup immediately. Now you're like, well, we have this guy and we also have this guy, and Gergensons is coming back, and Okposo, and like you've got a bunch of options here. And I'll say this too, like I think the kid's going to be a really good player. Far better players have been sent back to the AHL than Yuri Kulik, and then came back and had very good years. Like the kid, he's not the second coming of anything. Very good player, but this is a good problem to have. Like you have depth in Buffalo.
Dude, Shane Wright.
Imagine that. It's incredible.
Shane Wright was supposed to be the first overall pick. Did not end up being that, but he was sent back to junior. Like
he was sent back to junior and did what Shane Wright does. He again quietly, influences the game in ways that don't always show up on the score sheet, but he's really, really good defensively. Like,
do you think he ends up a better player for it? Probably.
Yeah. And I bet you if you caught him in a candid moment a couple years down the road, he will probably say the same thing. Didn't work out so great in Windsor. But well, it didn't work out so great for him, getting swept.
No, at the end of the day,
the experience isn't going to hurt him.
Would you rather sit? Was it in Seattle, or would you rather play? I think he would rather choose to play and go chase.
And he played a lot.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if Matthew Savoy, goes back to junior hockey and dominates there, gets to play as much as he wants, rather than being a rotational guy potentially into this lineup. And am I happy that Gergensons is coming back? I mean, yeah, I'm fine with it because again, he brings a style of play this team needs. Am I thrilled that Kyle Okposo is back? I mean, okay, he's the captain. Is he a part-time player or is he a full-time player? Is he a guy? Because if he's going to be a part-time player, then I think you really have to explore the idea of a co-captaincy, because I don't think you need. I don't like the idea of healthy scratching your captain. So, and I think of that partly that last season, as much of a great leader that he was, and he scored some big goals for them last year in certain moments, but you kind of put yourself in a position where you can't just healthy scratch your captain.
Yeah, I think ultimately, and I wonder your opinion on this. Like, I think ultimately right now he's in a bit of a placeholder position as the veteran guy until they decide they're ready to name Alex Tuch the captain.
I'm glad you said Alex Tuch, man, because I get a lot of shit sometimes. There's like a 50-50 split here in Buffalo who the next captain should be, Dahlin or Tuch. I personally think you just put it on Tuch. I think he's
and Tage Thompson's probably forced himself into that conversation too.
Yeah.
And there's another interesting problem for Buffalo. Which direction do you go with your captain? Do you give it to a more veteran guy? Do you give it, like many franchises do now, to the big superstar, which Tage Thompson is? Or do you give it to kind of the next up and coming guy who's shown that leadership, that passion for the city? He's a hometown kid in Alex Tuch. I don't think any of them are necessarily bad options. I just feel like Alex Tuch should be the captain of the Buffalo Sabres. That's just my opinion.
I agree. From Paramount Pictures, going back to our previous defenseman talk, I would like Kenneth and someone to play third line wing. Honestly, offensively, I don't know if you see any changes outside of a rookie coming into this lineup, because you look up and down. I mean, who is it? I mean, who would it be? I don't know. Like, I have always liked the idea of like a Michael Bunting coming on this team. I think he'd fit in very well. A few other names.
Can you imagine Killorn?
Killorn, exactly. Killorn would be a great.
I don't know how you'd shake it, but like Killorn on that line with Middlestat. Yeah. Whoa.
It'd be fantastic. 100%.
The depth, man.
I'm all about it. Very lethal. I saw another tweet earlier. I forget if it was in a group chat or not, but an interesting point made, for somebody to play on the opposite side of Casey to really give him one of those true scoring wingers. Because you'd imagine it'd probably be I don't know. I can't even remember who was on their third line next to Casey. It was Jack, Paterka, and Cousins in your second line, Tage, Tuck, and Tage, Tuck, and Skinner on your first. And then who was on that third line? Olofsson was on there from time to time when he wasn't healthy, scratched. Again, I don't know. Anyways, I would like an Alex Killorn type player. Michael Bunting would be great. I mean, we'll just wrap things up here in a second. But go back to that list that we just had up. Free agents, forwards, this upcoming offseason. Who's available? Let me see. NHL free agency 2023. Right here. So we have Ivan Barbashev tops that list. I think that guy gets an enormous payday. Bergeron probably retiring. Then you have Michael Bunting, Tyler Bertuzzi, a guy that I love. I love his style of play. Very in-your-face, aggressive with some skill. Patty Kane, hard pass. Phil Kessel, hard pass. And then you get Alex Killorn from Tampa Bay. Ryan O'Reilly, would love to see him make his return back, even though as a center that would probably push Casey to the wing. I'm fine with it. And then you got Max, you got Patch, Corey Perry, Jordan Stahl, Tarasenko. Those are pretty much the rest of the notable names, at least. So, again, I'd be all in on Alex Killorn. If you're going to add to your forward group from outside the organization, I'm not going to get into trade. We can get a different episode, but I really do think that in terms of your forward group, I think the only change you might see outside of an Olofsson trade is maybe a rookie. I don't think they really go outside of the organization, either via trade or free agency, to really add to this group unless something really jumps out at them. But I'd be all in on a guy like Michael Bunting. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly brings some spice to the lineup. Sometimes
sure.
a little too much, but I under the right coach and in the right system, like, look, that first year, he was a big part of that first line in Toronto. That was arguably, one of the top 3 first lines in the league. Like last year, yeah, he took a step back and he got himself into some trouble. Tom Wilson got himself into plenty of trouble too early in his career. Like, they're different players, but like he still has plenty of value. And he's not going to cost an arm and a leg. Like, yeah, he's going to bring a bit of jam to a lineup. And again, as much as he probably annoyed some Leaf fans this year with his disciplinary issues, can't say the guy doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
That's the worst thing ever, man. Like, it's the worst thing ever especially when a guy's really talented, when they don't care out there and you can see they're just kind of floating around out there. I would rather have one Michael Bunting than 5 Alexei Yashins.
Yeah.
I love
his style. What do you get for a Victor Olofsson? Very one-dimensional goal scorer. I see him going to Vegas. I really do. Jack spoke very highly of him when he was still with Buffalo, when he did his interview on Spit and Chicklets. Literally said, this guy can score 40 in his sleep. I could totally, and again, they're against the cap. They have to make some tough decisions. I think bringing in a guy that's cost controlled, I can't remember how much he's making. Like, it could be more than $4 million a year. I could totally see them striking a deal with Buffalo to bring in Victor Olofsson to play alongside Jack, especially if they lose Barbashev.
What about Carolina too?
We've talked about that because they're a very
Pacioretty thing, and now you're going to be a little concerned, like how afraid are you of Svechnikov potentially picking up another bad injury? Like Olofsson would add some depth to a team like that too. Like he's got value. Like, the guy can put the puck in the net. You know what I mean? And he probably can find a nice career as one of those like 30-20 guys, a guy that can score close to 30, if not 30, depending on the team he's on and the opportunities he gets on a power play, and, do that very well and not much else.
Yeah.
But there's always going to be value attached to guys that can score in this league. So
I saw a third. Oh, I hope we get a third or a fourth one. You're out of your mind if you think you're just getting a third round pick for a guy with term left that can score 30 goals in this league. I just don't see it. I don't care how one dimensional we are.
If someone offered me a second rounder and a decent roster player for him, maybe like a third pair defenseman, just somebody like reliable that I know I can pencil into my lineup pretty consistently, I'd be pretty satisfied with that. Because the thing that's tough about Olofsson is, with his release and his skill, I agree with Jack Eichel. I believe he could score 40 goals. Maybe 100%. Once in his career or something. And then you sit there and go, geez, how'd we only get a second rounder and a third pair defenseman for him? But the problem with a guy like him is that his value gets hidden and clouded behind this fog of uncertainty with what kind of effort you're going to get from him on a night-to-night basis. Yep. He can go out there and score 2 goals in his sleep and float around and do nothing else, or he could literally show up and literally do nothing and be a -3 on the night.
Yeah.
That's what he is. Like, so I understand fans looking at the ceiling of his value and going, but he could do this and we should get value here. The issue, though, is that other GMs watch games and they see him here
not in Philly, because look what we got for Rasmus Ristolainen.
Listen, we don't need to talk about whatever's going on over there, okay?
Yeah.
But I know what you mean. Arizona exists. But other hockey executives can see, like, they see him play and they see a lot of this and not a lot of that. So while we all sit here and go, he's got this in his repertoire, we get an awful lot of this down here. So that's what kind of hurts his value, right? I don't know. It'll be interesting because there's no way he's playing for Buffalo next year. Like, absolutely
no way. You don't get healthy scratched in the most important games of the year.
No, Donnie Meatballs
guy trending towards 30. He plays a full season last year. He plays all 82 games. He scores 30, probably 35 goals.
Yeah, you're probably right.
28 or 29 this past season, and he missed a handful of games. He probably scores 30 to 35.
I just think that they've got plenty of offensive talent there to carry the mail, and Donnie Meatballs completely lost.
They're a top 5 scoring team in the regular season in the NHL this year. Their deficiencies were in offense. It was defense and in net. And I think that is a major priority for Kevin Adams in the offseason to fix what's going on in the blue line. And we'll see what happens in the net. Like, am I in favor of running back both Levi and UPL? I mean, I'm 50-50 on it. I think if UPL can develop his game and as a 1B, you can stick in there for 30, 35 games. If he can win you 50% or more, I'm happy with that. Or I prefer more. I'd prefer a 55 to 60% winning percentage from him. And I think you did well there. We all can't be Craig Anderson at 41 years old and come in and, put up the numbers he did in the 2 years he was with Buffalo. But I don't know. I think a guy like Victor Olofsson, at least gets you a second round pick from the right team. That's just my opinion. If not a first, I think the right team, a team that, again, is strapped for against the cap. Maybe you take on a bad contract because you have the cap space to do it. Like with Vegas, they throw in a first and maybe a roster player because you're taking off the roster player you're taking gives them some cap relief. I could definitely see that. So, final thoughts going into obviously free agency and the draft.
I think there's potential again for some crazy trades to happen.
On draft
Are the Leafs actually running this back, or are they going to do something crazy? Are we going to see other big stars moved on teams that maybe underachieved? Washington, I would think, would be one of those teams that is probably going to be active. I don't know that I would be upset if Yevgeny Kuznetsov had a new address, as much as I love the kid. A very, very, very frustrating player.
Very streaky.
He's a guy that could instantly add some serious talent, albeit frustrating talent, to a lineup. What's going to happen pick-wise? There's some teams with multiple picks in the top 2 rounds that have some flexibility, and I'm sure would love to shed some salary too. Like, there's going to be some wild stuff that happens on draft day. Draft day is the day now where things get crazy, and I'm excited to see.
Ryan O'Reilly was traded to Buffalo on draft day.
Yes, sir. Subban, the Stamkos signing, dude.
Yep, lot. I think there's a lot of excitement on the draft floor this year for sure.
I agree.
Buffalo picks 13th overall. The St. Louis Blues, a team that's probably rebuilding. Should be rebuilding. Is rebuilding. 3 first-round picks. Do they use them all like Buffalo did last year? Do they move some of these picks? Do they use them all? I think they should use them all personally.
I do too.
I think they really need to
unless a late one, like if they move one of the later 2, move it for a younger, ready now player, like a 22, 23-year-old. Other than that, St. Louis should restock their cupboard.
I also think they need to find a way to get away from Jordan Binnington. That's my opinion. Get that guy
playing himself into a not favorable spot. Like, the guy's not winning hockey games.
And he's just a distraction.
More often than not, yes.
Yeah, so Buffalo holds 13th overall. Who's the kid? Matthew Wood. One name thrown around a lot. He made comparisons for himself to Tage Thompson, a guy he looks up to. Buffalo did some, obviously the combine here in Buffalo. Buffalo did some in-depth talking with him. Hamburg native Quentin Musty, also up for grabs out of Sudbury. Kind of slated to probably go anywhere between maybe Buffalo's pick and 25. Any thoughts on him? I don't know if you've paid attention much to his game out of Sudbury, but a kid that will be the first one to first Buffalo kid to be taken in the first round since Patty Kane.
Yeah, paid plenty of attention to him because he's in the OHL. Really good player, good hands, good nose for the net, and a really good skater. Like, good acceleration. His first 2 or 3 steps are really good. He can create separation. Mm-hmm. He's got a good shot, and I think he's actually an underrated passer, but his game will be in tight, 6 feet in from the crease, going upstairs, collecting rebounds. Like, he's not afraid to go into that dirty area to collect a goal. And I think that he's going to make a team really happy. He's going to turn into a really solid goal scorer. Nothing crazy. I don't think he's going to turn into, like a 35-40 goal guy, but just a really solid top 6 player that can go to the front of the net and get his cookies. I think that he would be an interesting pick. Yeah, he's a great name.
Yeah, I love the name. Musty. Musty getting musty. Musty getting dusty. A lot you can do with that last name. Obviously I plan on doing our annual draft show. I hope you'll be able to join us when we do, depending on what you got going on. We'll do our free agency show too. I'll probably take the day off just for that one. Excited as always. I know we didn't get to a lot of draft talk, but we do have a special guest coming on with us this upcoming Tuesday. Obviously, draft draft analyst on Twitter, Steve Coronanos. I always butcher his name, but he's been doing NHL draft coverage since 2015. He's on Substack. You can find him there. He's agreed to come on. It's 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Ryan, you're always welcome to come on, get his thought, your thoughts on him with the Caps, what they might do. But I'm excited to have Steve on and hopefully some others leading into the draft as well. And again, we have the start of NHL free agency on July 1st, which snuck right up on us, right around the corner. So, Ryan, thanks for hopping out with me, bud. Actually, I wanted to show you him last time. I know we showed you guys pictures, but let me see if I can get Reptar out here. Hold on. Check this out.
Oh, yes. The unofficial mascot of the show.
Oh, yeah.
The Lizard King himself.
Yeah.
Yeah, get him out here.
There he is. Check this guy out. Here he is.
That's a lizard, dude.
That is a lizard. That is a chameleon. He's called it's a panther chameleon.
Whoa.
My dog's over here too, so he's getting all like tensed up right now. Because my dog's always interested in things that he might be able to eat. And
of course, yeah.
He's never seen one of these before until now, so he's a little more interested than he should be. But yeah, unofficial mascot of Two Goalies, One Mike, I guess. Reptar, the Panther Chameleon. Right now he's got like a turquoise, blue, and red going on. He turns orange, yellow, green, which is a normal color for chameleons. But yeah,
that's
this
wild.
guy's awesome.
Hell of a mascot.
Hell yeah. So from myself, Ryan Drury from the Instigator Podcast, check it out. And for Cully, for Hurls, I am Duane. This has been episode 128 of Two Goalies, One Mike, brought to you by Outlet Liquor, the place to buy a case over on George Herman Boulevard. Don't waste for all your NHL offseason needs, your cookout needs. Make sure you get to Outlet Liquor. Tell them the boys from Two Goalies, One Mike sent you. And, Reptar sent you too. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks again, Ryan. We'll see you soon.